Imagine an entire major city's worth of people just vanishing, completely dropping out of public life, locking their doors, and fading away. We're doing an explainer today on a deeply human, honestly staggering crisis in Japan. We are going to uncover a completely hidden demographic that practically nobody talks about.
Okay, let's dive into this. Who exactly are the 600,000 adults who just stopped existing? I know, it's a haunting phrase, but it's shockingly accurate. They haven't literally vanished off the face of the earth, right? But socially and economically, they are completely gone. And perhaps the most unsettling part of this data is the silence around it. They are a massive, silent, blind spot in a highly advanced society. 600,000. Just let that massive scale truly sink in for a second. We aren't talking about a few dozen isolated folks slipping through the cracks here, or some tiny niche group. We are talking about over 500,000 human beings living completely out of sight. That is an enormous segment of the population, quietly existing in the shadows of one of the busiest countries on Earth.
You might have actually heard the term Hikikomori before. It essentially means people who completely lock themselves away, stuck inside their rooms. We're taking that massive macro-level number of 600,000 and zooming all the way down to a really claustrophobic micro-reality, one single locked room. Because for them, that is their entire world. 4 walls, a closed door, and total unyielding withdrawal from the outside. The physical boundary of their universe is literally just the frame of their bedroom door.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how it totally shatters our preconceptions. The typical image of a hikikomori is your classic teenage cliché, an angsty youth who just refuses to go to high school. But buying into that completely ignores a specific, formal crisis, which is middle-aged isolation.
Because the data tells us the average age is actually 37. And get this, that number is steadily rising. Think about the implications of that for a minute. These aren't just kids going through a rebellious phase or taking a gap year to hide from exams. This is deep, entrenched, long-term isolation. In fact, thousands upon thousands of these individuals are already in their 50s.
And some of them haven't stepped outside in a decade, a full 10 years. Imagine watching a decade's worth of seasons change strictly through the glass of a window. You're confined to the exact same space, day after day, year after year, completely severed from the normal flow of time and society. So the absolutely crucial point here is, they weren't lazy. It is so easy for society to look at someone behind a closed door and label them as unmotivated or sluggish. But this isn't about a lack of work ethic. This is a story of fundamentally broken people experiencing complete psychological and emotional collapse.
If we examine the actual triggers, these were everyday functioning people. Many were salarymen who just burned out under the relentless pressure of corporate life. Others were totally devastated by a divorce, or navigating life with absolutely zero romantic relationships. And when those social and professional safety nets collapse, the locked door basically becomes their only coping mechanism.
And this builds into an even more precarious reality. Because how does someone even survive in a single room for decades? Well, they live with their parents. Parents who, right now, are in their 80s. These elderly parents are literally the ones feeding and financially supporting their middle-aged children. It is a deeply fragile lifeline, an aging parent caring for a 50-year-old child who refuses to cross the threshold of their bedroom.
Which brings us to the inevitable, silent tragedy of time passing. When those parents in their 80s eventually die, a lot of these hikikomori don't call anyone. The isolation is so deeply ingrained and the social paralysis is just so absolute that even when their sole caretakers pass away in the very same house, they don't reach out to emergency services, they don't call family, they call absolutely no one.
They just stay. They remain in their rooms, totally trapped by their own psychological walls, until the smell reaches the outside. That is the absolute silent end. A life that just quietly fades away, entirely unnoticed by the world, until it becomes physically impossible to ignore. Which leaves us with this heavy, lingering question. What happens to a society when 600,000 of its people quietly vanish behind closed doors? This is a massive structural symptom of a modern world where people can simply stop existing. It's a hidden reality that demands we ask how we define connection and honestly, who we might be leaving behind.